And
Thank you,
certainly
Daniel.
in the vein of putting out as many feelers as possible. You never know when somebody will watch a video later, and that's how you get the connection. So yeah, I'm happy to do that. So what I wanted to show you is, I think in the past I've already shown you the voice it stuff
Yes.
uh, box that can be triggered by an RFID tag to play an audio file. So I hope I haven't shown you this already. If I have, then tell me I'm being redundant. But we we were able to take an additional piece of hardware and tie it into the same logic. And this is an QR code barcode reader.
Mm.
So now you can read anything with a QR code or a barcode and trigger the playing of an audio file.
Mm.
Um, and and again, the mechanical engineer who's part of this team came up with a real nice design for how to integrate it and how to control the angle of the reading. But what's cute is all the things you can now do with it because of that. RFID is, and it's also modular in the sense you choose what features you want. You don't have to have both RFID and QR code barcode reading. You can
Mm.
do one or the other or both. This is a box that does both. You can have internal speaker or external speaker or both. This one does both. The more you do, the more jumper wires are inside this box and have to be pushed in at the last second, unfortunately. But um, so in any case, what the fun stuff you can do is I can take QR codes can be encoded with text just like the RFID tags can be. Barcodes can be, I didn't realize this, barcodes can be encoded with text. Um, and so I'll just show you a couple things you can do. So this is Goodnight Moon, the book. And on the front, you'll see a QR code.
Mhm.
I just printed that on a Avery sticker page and stuck it to the front. And then I had my daughter record each page in here, both in English and Spanish. And you can now take this and put it, expose it to the QR code reader, and it will read the book one page at a time with a little ding to tell you to turn the page. Um, because it's all just a coded thing telling the box to choose files, you can do the same thing with an RFID tag. If the box is equipped to read RFID tags, and everything out there, whoops, let me cover it with my fingers. Everything out there comes with a barcode. So I can just expose the barcode to the box and it will read the book. Um, Medicine, this is just a vitamin. All medicine bottles come with
QR code.
QR codes.
Mm.
So I can take this bottle, read the QR code, and you can do that with any QR code reading app on your phone, just to what the number is if you can't read it easily yourself, and and make that a file name, encode whatever I want or record whatever I want in that audio file. So for my mother-in-law, the idea was you would say, what is in this bottle, how many of them they should take and when, and if they should take it with water or food or something like that, you say that as well. And you decide what you want to record. And then you can just expose this. And I made a little tray here specifically for bottles that allow you to kind of position the tray. And because it has rubber bumpers on the bottom, it doesn't move around. And you just rotate the bottle on top here until you hear the announcement played. It says, oh, that's what this is. Um, you can also, again, do the same thing by putting a RFID sticker on the bottom. So this RFID sticker is just is encoded with the text, something like vitamin D. And So I make a copy. I have two files. One that is the file name is the QR code. The other one, the file name is vitamin D. So I could just as easily put the numbers that are in the not the QR code, in the barcode. I could have put the numbers in the barcode and coded that into this RFID tag. And last, and this is just brainstorming because there's really no end to what you can do. It's just your it's just your imagination. So I also scanned the book into a PDF document and inserted QR codes for each page. So when you read it in, you just place it so that the voice it can see the QR code. Again, orientation of a QR code is irrelevant. And you can just change pages. And as soon as you change the page, it'll read the next page. People can explore the page, you change the page, it reads the next page. You change the language, it does it in Spanish rather than English. There are, with generative AI now, you can generate additional languages really easily too. So extending this, have additional languages. You put the text into something like Speechify, somebody speaks it for you in that language. You take that MP3 file, you have to convert it to a WAV for this architecture, and now you've got support for another language. Yeah, and all for about $130 in off-the-shelf parts. Not bad. Anyway, I wanted to get that into your heads so you're kind of thinking, oh, maybe that would be useful. In fact, I'd love to see people build one of these just to have it there for other therapists and professionals to play with and get additional ideas.
Absolutely. And I think the most interesting thing that you show was like the aspect of like medication management, I think, as kind of like a low tech option or like low to mid tech option for folks. I mean, as opposed to like a medical or medication dispenser where it's more around physical disability and whatnot. But if they're able to open the the pills with like
Right.
pretty easily, I think it just helps with the memory aspect of things really well. So I think that's really, really creative use of both the RFID tag as well as the QR code, and you can use both for like that kind of, at least for the medications and the vitamins.
Yeah, and so you think everything has a barcode.
Yes.
Everything you can buy commercially has a barcode, or you wouldn't be able to pay for it at the checkout counter. And so then it just is the question now, if somebody can't read what's on the box,
Yeah,
but they want to, and they have a lot of boxes all about the same size, how do you tell them which one is I don't know. I don't know. This is the problem. I immediately can't come up with the right examples. But it can pretty much read anything, and because you decide what you want to say when the thing comes up, then you can determine, oh, if I want somebody to take these series of items to make this thing, you can tell them, oh, this is the sugar container. You want 1 cup of this. You can put those instructions in a specific directory on the drive, on the SD card, so that first you say, this is the recipe, and now all of the instructions for that set of boxes are specific to that recipe. Yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility here in how you organize the recordings too. It's really flexible.
I think a big plus of this that I like is by using barcodes or QR codes, these are things that could be printed out. It's not a piece of physical hardware like an RFID. So I think that really opens up a lot of opportunities there. Like you said, you could now print out a sticker and put it on a book. That is far less expensive. I mean, RFIDs aren't that expensive, but
no, but the reader writer is.
Right, and from a technical perspective too, it's just I really like that. It really opens up a lot of stuff. My one question is, how do you handle like the learning of it? Like, how do you train it to recognize this barcode or this QR code?
So on the web page associated with this box, I I talk about, you can take any, I have a QR code reader app on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
You can, and it reads barcodes as well. And you can
Mhm.
just take that and look at the code on whatever, and it will show you what's on that code. It will show you 900110231. And then you just take that and make that the name of a file.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making a recording, and I like to use something that does MP3 and then I convert it to WAV, or I can use Audacity and create the WAV directly. And in fact, I use Audacity to create that WAV file in the end anyway, even if I'm using it just to convert an MP3 to a mono WAV file. And then you just put it in a reasonable place based on the file structure on the SD card. You take the SD card out, you record it, or you copy it to the card, you put it back in the device. There's a opening on the bottom specifically for that purpose. You can,
Mm-hmm.
a little slot there is where you insert the micro SD card. And then it's available, ready to go. The training is really creating the proper WAV file and putting it in an SD card.
Right. I'm thinking of future enhancements and stuff like, okay, now can we have the box learn and record within the same box? So
yeah, so
you wouldn't even need a computer for
right, right. So the question is, can you get recording functionality into the box?
Yeah.
And that would either be, at this point, that would either be separate circuitry altogether or a different Arduino. So the Arduino that's in there right now only knows how to play something. It doesn't know how to record. There's no record capability.
Right. Yeah, because I've done like a talking clock thing that does the same thing, but it's all pre-recorded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it just plays them in the right order. So yeah, I get that part. No, I really like that. I like I said, I really like the fact that that you could do barcodes and QR codes or paper based.
Right.
That's a big seller.
And
And I really like the bottle thing. If you have somebody who has a low vision, they could just scan the bottle and we'll tell them this is aspirin, this is whatever.
Right. And there are some limitations of both technologies. So RFID works well if it's not in the vicinity of another RFID tag.
Okay.
Because there is electromagnetic interferences and it maybe doesn't know which one it's reading. So if I were to take this book and try to stack a bunch of, put an RFID tag on each page, it's unlikely that would work.
Right.
But QR code is just fine. The problem with QR codes is it has to be visible. So I can't hide the QR code like
yeah.
like you do with these symbols. I can't embed it in the symbol.
Yeah, I got you. Different uses, different technologies.
Right.
Yeah. No, very nice. I have to make one of your boxes now.
Yeah, please.
I'd love to make it, but I don't have the money, even with it being $100.
Yeah.
And I don't even have the skills because it all depends on what my dad can do.
You can do this box. So there were 3 of us involved in the design of this box. My sole purpose was to say, no, I'm not going to let you do that. We have to make it easier to do the assembly. So the only tools you need to assemble this thing is a screwdriver, a scissors, yeah, and then you kind of need a pliers.
Pliers, you said?
A pliers, yeah.
Yeah, so no soldering iron?
No soldering.
Oh,
so
then I
that's-
actually might be able to do it. I'm always too afraid to touch the soldering iron.
I'm
That's
too
fine.
I'm too afraid to breathe around them myself.
That's one of my switches. My dad always solders the button onto the cord. I made this out of a Tupperware container.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, very nice.
Yeah, so there's no need for soldering.
Oh, one of my goals is I got to make people happier with soldering.
Yeah.
My dad's really good at it.
One of my goals is to lower barriers.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's I've taught a lot of people of all ages how to solder. It really is a hands-on thing. You need to really have a mentor with you. But I've had so many people who just were frightened of it, and with the right training and just take it easy, take it slow.
Is that your cat behind you?
That is one of my many cats. Yes,
How many cats? How many cats?
more than 10.
Oh wow. All in the house?
Yeah, they're all indoor
Very
cats.
nice.
Yeah, I'm a
We have
foster
2
failure.
cats.
I am a foster failure. So
No, no, no. I wouldn't say that.
We have 2
No,
cats,
I would
Abby
definitely
and Smokey.
I would definitely agree that like at least I've only had one experience soldering for like a pre-session up at closing the gap, and like at least for me, since I don't have full use of my right hand, like I think the one hand aspect of it was kind of frightening, especially because I just did not want to end up trying to use my right hand anyway, like I accidentally burn myself. So I think I do appreciate the aspect or the consideration of trying to lower the barriers of, I mean, given I think the soldering is definitely a really valuable skill, but at the same time, it's like, especially even with some tools that were given for like one hand soldering, I did feel like it was kind of at least tricky. But again, it's one of those things where I might need it several different times to actually go through the process.
Yeah, it's a matter of practice. It's
Yeah.
it's like any other skill. I mean, I solder all the time, so I've soldered tens of thousands of things.
Yeah.
So you get pretty quick on it, and you get
Yeah.
smarter. You mentioned your one-handed thing. I mean, that's the same sort of problem I have.
Yeah.
You never have enough hands.
Yeah.
So I design a whole bunch of jigs and holders and everything to hold. I got to do 2 slide switches. So I have a 3D printed jig that I put the slide switches in, holds them in place on a vise. Do. Oh, it's because I have no patience. So
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, so I even strive not to require the ability to strip a wire,
Mm.
Okay.
because wire stripping, if you're going to do it right, requires a tool, and it requires being able to determine what the gauge of the wire is.
Right.
And so again, this box doesn't require you to even strip a wire, though wires are joined to each other,
Mhm.
because there's a wonderful little connector that's available on Amazon. You buy them in bulk.
Mhm.
And all you do is stick 2 wires into it and crimp it. And you got a really good connection. So yeah, if that, I like to claim that's an important part of DIY AT design,
Mhm.
really lowering the technical skill requirement as much as possible.
You're going to put me out of business.
No.
I'm
Good.
I'm sure you're
No, you're exactly right. Because the more people doing this, so many people have ideas and just may not have the skills to implement it or don't even know where to start. And it's really important that they could do that. And I like you could buy the stuff off of Amazon. I'm a big believer in that. You should be able to buy most of your parts list off of it. If I have to send you to 5 different electronic suppliers and have a PCB
right,
for you, it stops me from doing it.
right.
Very cool.
Does anyone else have any updates? Jennifer, do you have any? Or Jessica, do you have anything?
I was just going to share that I've made a voice it and I thought it was fairly easy to make. So I don't know. I didn't have Ken's instructions for everything are always amazing. So he's very detailed, and I thought it was pretty easy to create. So
Cool.
And what kind of uses have you done the voice it for?
we've used it for communication, for storybooks. So I recorded an entire storybook on it. I know you were talking about the QR codes before, Ken, but it was all one recording. So you use the RFID sticker on the back of the book, and then you could scan it and listen to the whole story. And I did the old school chime to turn the page with the bell that I had from my kids. And, you know, sometimes old school is not so bad. Not everything has to be super techy, but
Yeah, and if you download the latest copy of the software, I've quite let's just say illegally included recordings of Goodnight Moon in both English and Spanish on there.
okay.
This book is in English and Spanish. So it's a cheap way to get that part. Plus I make it available on the website to download the scanned pages with all their associated QR codes. Oh, maybe we shouldn't have recorded this.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Uh.
say, we might want to rewind that.
Author's gonna go after you now, Ken.
In theory, Ken would have done that.
Yeah, I could have done
Yes.
that. And I definitely did say, please buy the book, and I provide a
There's
Amazon link for that.
Yes.
There
That's
you
a pretty common book. I think most people have Goodnight Moon. So most school libraries have it. Most teacher
Solidly.
libraries have it. You have a baby shower, you're getting Goodnight Moon. So
go.
that was a good one to pick.
Indeed. Jessica, do you have any updates? Oh, sorry, didn't mean to catch you eating. I'll just give you a moment. But it was really cool that you showed us the switch they made out of Tupperware. Oh, sorry.
By switches in a month, the crazy design switches that I've made with my Cricut. Did a Valentine's Day.
Great.
Oh, nice.
I made a temp. I go on Google, I find an image, I take a screenshot, and then I trace a paper around it, and then I cut it out on cardboard. So then I did the letters and the Cupid in vinyl.
Mhm.
And my all-time favorite one so far that I made this winter, I got a Pringles can, and I made like, it doesn't shake very well. That was bad planning. But it's supposed to be like a snow globe switch with a Pringles can lid.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Very creative.
Neat.
Really reusing everything they
We
have.
have
And I used my
huge-
Cricut again.
we have
Nice.
a huge need for sensory sort of switches. So any of our tactile switches that have like bumps on them,
Did you see this one?
those are ones that our students really enjoy and seem to be more motivated to activate.
And I'm curious, do you usually get your switches like from a traditional manufacturer like AbleNet or?
Yeah, we have a lot of enabling devices. They seem to have a lot of different tactile type switches, but they don't last very long.
Gotcha. I think it's kind of blurred out. Let's see here.
Let me turn it off. So, this, I got a book cover back when all the school stuff went on clearance. I think I showed this in my first meeting, maybe, or at least talked about it.
Mhm.
I got 2 pieces of cardboard, soldered a switch. Well, my dad soldered and I hot glued it to one side of the cardboard. And then I put the book cover on, and it's tactile, and you can click it and it'll work. You can press down on it. And yeah, it's like a big space where somebody can touch down. And if you ever want to, if you have more of these covers, you can always change the design to maybe
Mhm.
you find something that's more like high contrast. Well, I guess this is a little high contrast, but
Very nice. I definitely like the fact that it's like so large that you can easily kind of choose
this is
which
the
one.
only one I'm ever gonna make of it because it was so hard to put together because you have to have the cardboard lined up like perfectly.
Hmm.
You can
I
ask
know
my
that feeling. I'll
mom.
never build it again.
So this is one that actually lights up and it vibrates. It's kind of bumpy on the top. And this one doesn't play music, but we have some versions that also play music to capture sort of their attention, get them to activate it. And then there's a switch port in the back where you can plug this into something. So that's just one example that I had sitting down here.
Yeah, that's huge. It looks like
Yeah.
one of those roadside alert flashing things, whatever they're called.
Yeah, that one I actually
Construction
have.
signs?
That one I'm actually having a student that is blind use, so he really likes like vibrating pillows. So we're seeing with like a power link, so he can activate like the blender during some cooking activities. Just seeing if that vibration and that music will help direct him to feeling that switch and using it to activate. So he doesn't necessarily need the light up part of it because he is blind, but and then we have another student in that same classroom that just is not engaging with anything, but again, she likes those vibrating kind of pillows, so we thought maybe with the vibration on the switch that would help get her to activate the switch.
And actually, I'm not too familiar with vibrating pillows. Would you be able to like send a link in the chat so I can?
Yeah, you can buy them on Amazon, but they also
me
have
a
switch
second.
adapted ones too. So we have the student that is blind. He actually sits, it's like a disc one. He sits on it to give him some input and feedback of where he's sitting.
Gotcha.
But we also have some sensory ones that some of our students enjoy.
Or Jessica, I think you're muted.
This is a vibrating pillow. You hear it?
I'm not sure if, unfortunately, I don't think I hear it quite.
Well,
Well-
it makes a noise and you can vibrate it.
Nice.
I almost put a battery interrupter into this and it would have worked
Nice.
if the cord wouldn't have been so like almost damaged if I would have closed the case on it for the battery. And I don't know if I want to like put a hole in the side of it because I don't know if I'm ever going to want it switch adapted in the future. That's the problem.
Gotcha. My goodness, so a vibrating pillow is between $41 and $70. Wow.
Yeah.
That is
Got that one at Walmart and it was like $30, right?
I think somewhere around there.
And I have one other crazy thing that I learned that I want to share. Have you ever had a switch like this one that has that many of the loop things on it? And it doesn't work on chip.
Yeah, that's a stereo switch. Or a stereo plug.
I learned last week with my dad. We just brought all my switch adapted toys over and went around the garage, just plugging it into stuff. If you plug that cord into the tiny switchy and then plug a switch into it, if it doesn't work with a regular switch, it usually works. I didn't know that.
So Jessica, that's just a stereo plug instead of a monaural plug. And so it has 3 contacts rather than just 2. So it's not that difficult. Once you figure out what your switch or toy or whatever it is expects, or you can compare it to monaural and say, okay, these 2 leads, they just need to be twisted together. On that stereo, so you have a ground, and then both the tip and the ring have to just be twisted together and put that wherever you would otherwise put it. And you can use a stereo plug at that point.
We only had the long ones like this because we used the other half of it when we switch adapt. But I only have like short cords, so you can see I only have short cords for the switches I make, and I wanted one with a longer cord. So we tried that, we tested it, but it works if I put in the tiny switchy for some reason.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have to bring in that additional hardware. So it's that stereo plug will have 3 wires, and you're just going to join 2 of them together.
All right. Probably on the next one, because this one's like never coming out of that.
Right.
But it's good to know if you're in a situation where, like, I guess if you're in a situation where all you have is a tiny switchy. Cause it's like fits in your pocket, it's so small.
Anyone else have any updates?
Well, I could show a couple of things. One of the things I've been working on is I have a user an IntelliKeys user, who wants to control multiple Bluetooth devices, like his phone, his tablet, whatnot, with the IntelliKeys. And he found a while ago a little board from China for about $10 that does, you plug in your keyboard and your mouse, and then it acts as a Bluetooth device, so your phone sees it as Bluetooth. And it will, but the cool thing is it'll support up to 8 devices.
Oh, wow.
So you could toggle between this device, this device, this device, this device. So what I've done for him, he has CP, and he, it's just a tiny button on this plastic device. So I had to adapt out so that he can have an external switch so he could toggle between the different units. We've also set it up so it's got a cleaner head unit, so he could mount the little display at the head of his power chair where his joystick's at. And then, the wiring and everything could be tucked behind him. And one of the things that I found with that is so like this is a base unit. So it's got where they plug in their power and their USB. And going up to the head, I'm using RJ45 cable. This is Ethernet network cable. This is Cat6 cable. But what I found is that they have this ultra slim line. So this is like 5 feet of cable here. And let me see if I have, I don't have my other one around, but to compare it with, but it's a huge difference. And you've got 8 wires here. You've got 4 twisted pairs. So if you're moving data around, I would recommend taking a look at the RJ45 and the thing, and it's strain relief, and it's pretty handy there. So that's one kind of bespoke thing that I've been working on. Another thing with, because I do mostly game controllers, joystick input devices, and the PlayStation Access controller has come out. So there's been a lot of folks looking for joysticks for that device. Now, unlike the Xbox adaptive controller, you could put an analog stick in either through a TRS 4-pole jack in the back or USB. Okay, and most of my stuff's USB. The PlayStation Access controller does not do that. So you can't plug in a USB stick, and there's folks looking for analog. If you have a simple analog stick, like a traditional one like you'd have in a game controller, that's just 2 potentiometers, that you could wire up. I mean, if you could do some soldering and some wiring, you can get that, and it will work fine with the PlayStation Access. But that does not work for what I call the cool controllers, like the Circa Glide Point touch controllers, any sort of touch pads, any sort of magnetic sensors, anything digital. So what I'm working on right now is a converter that will take the, whatever, like a digital input, like on a Glide Point touch, and then use digital potentiometers to then send analog signals to the PlayStation so that it thinks it sees an analog joystick, but in reality, it's digital behind the scenes. So I know a couple other controller guys out there are working on solving this problem in a similar way. I don't know why Sony did this, Sony being Sony, but So I wanted to throw that out there in case anybody had gaming stuff coming up, specifically for the PlayStation, because people have been really needing an adaptive controller for that. And it
Yeah,
just,
I haven't looked much into the adaptive controller for PlayStation quite yet. We have, at least at TTAP, we have some experience with the Xbox adaptive controller, and I think we do have the adaptive option for the Nintendo Switch, but I think we're going to wait a little while until actually getting the, manufactured adaptive controller, but it's good to know that about
Right.
that issue for sure.
right. Yeah, because on the Switch, normally they'll use the Hori controller, and then on the Xbox, use the Xbox. Yeah, the problem with the PlayStation one is it only works with PlayStation 5. You can't plug it into a computer. So in order for me to even test it, I would have to buy a PS5 and this, and I don't have the budget for that. So
Gotcha. Also, I think in the chat, Jennifer put, I think in regards to the first project that you're mentioning, Ron, is it similar to the Tekla? And then she put the link to gettekla.com, if you're familiar.
let me take a look.
And while you're looking at that, I kind of brought up a question that I've had that maybe you guys would actually have some answers for me on. So I'm a speech language pathologist, and my expertise is in augmentative and alternative communication. However, I do a lot of my role in the school district I work in is in assistive technology, so I kind of do it all. And we have dedicated communication systems. Some of them are iPad based, some might be Windows based, some might be Android based. And I've asked this question of many of the device manufacturers. We have a deaf and hard of hearing program in our district. And anybody that is using, like, let's say a cochlear implant or some sort of amplifier, so they put like a boot onto their hearing aids, and the teacher wears like a microphone so that voice is then kind of piped directly into their hearing aids. But for some of our students, they're also using augmentative and alternative communication devices. And like with your cochlear implant, the voice can go directly, because it's all Bluetooth, it can go directly into your cochlear implant. So if somebody has their iPad and they have it connected via Bluetooth, the sound from the communication device goes directly into their cochlear implant or their hearing aids, but then it does not come out for everybody else to hear. So in the classroom, if they're trying to communicate something, they're hearing those words in their implant, in their hearing aids, but it's not being voiced out loud. So do you guys know, would there be a way? None of our device manufacturers that I'm aware of, and I've looked into several, Tobii Dynavox, PRC Satillo, there is no way to sort of split that sound, because there's benefit to them hearing it, in their ears. But then you also, if you're trying to communicate to people, you want them to hear it too. Can you guys think of any way to sort of split that sound? Like here, I've got a dedicated communication device. This is from Talk to Me Technologies, their smart box. They have a Bluetooth external speaker that's mounted right on their dedicated device. So it's, Bluetooth there. And that's how most of the device manufacturers, I think, are connecting. I'm not going to say all, but a lot of them are connecting external speakers that are mounted onto their case via a Bluetooth sort of connection.
Jennifer, I'm surprised this isn't an Apple question if we're talking iPad. So,
but it's not all Apple, because like Tobii Dynavox's devices are not their Windows-based devices,
right, but it's
and
kind of
we have not. Tobii Dynavox hasn't been able to give me an answer to that really either.
I'm thinking it's an OS level problem. How do I get a single audio source to go out on two different
channels,
channels, either Bluetooth or otherwise?
Yeah.
The software manufacturer, whether it's Tobii or anybody else, really shouldn't have to worry about that. it should just be how, so I'm wondering whether it's not something that may already be supported in Android, iOS, Windows.
It's not. It's not. And it's a limitation of the Bluetooth protocol.
Okay.
For those sorts of devices, they only are in a paired one-to-one communication. For enough bandwidth to handle things like sound or high data rates, but relatively high.
And it's
Now,
it's just a problem that could continually come up in the
Oh,
last
yeah,
like 5
absolutely.
years, like within my career and I think because we have a high density of students, we're one of the only local school districts that has a DHH program with teachers, and so we get a lot of those students into our district. But it's been one where I feel like the technology should catch up, because there is a lot of benefit to being able to hear both.
right.
ways.
From a purely technical standpoint, what you'd be looking at is like a Bluetooth splitter, which doesn't exist.
I
to my
know, that's why I'm bringing it up here, guys.
Right, right. So what you do is you would pair your iPad or whatever to this splitter. And so it would have a pair there. And then within the splitter, it would have 2 more Bluetooth radios in it. And then your cochlear implant would pair to one, and some desktop speaker, whatever, would pair to the other. They can't both pair to one point, but you could have a box that acts like a splitter, like a
No,
one-to-many.
and I've searched high and low and I can't find anything
No,
like
they don't
that,
exist.
so-
I can tell. Yeah, they don't exist.
Ron, Ken,
So
Cole.
Unfortunately, I'm not really
it's
much
a
of an
really
fan
good
of
idea. I mean,
them.
it ties into the thing I just talked about with the one-to-many 8
Well,
Bluetooth.
that's why, yes, so that is actually what made me think of it, and I just got these devices and it actually just came up with a
Right,
student
yeah.
like less than a month
This
ago,
box
so.
won't help because this box
Yeah,
just
I know.
acts like a KVM. It just
Yep. Yep.
goes
I
from
understand, I
one to
think,
the
how your
next.
box is working, how the Tekla works, but
But
yeah, it just made me think of that and I was like, oh, I'm gonna bring it up here.
no, that's a real good one. It's a pain because I've looked into that for other uses too. Because a lot of my work, it's interesting, there's overlap between this and musicians. So a lot of the
yeah.
controllers that I make, musicians see them and they're like, oh, I want to pitch bend, or I want to do something with this. It's almost uncanny how much overlap there is. And it's actually very, very cool because I get ideas out of the musicians. Like, I really need fine control in this direction only. Well, I'm like, I could use and apply that to the ATEC work, so.
Mhm.
But yeah, the audio splitter, that has come up for me in the past. So
Yeah, it doesn't seem like any of the device
I like-
manufacturers really want to tackle it.
it's,
And I thought maybe like a bigger company like Tobii Dynavox or somebody would be capable, have the resources to do something like that. But I think it's a semi-small population that would need that. And so I don't think there's enough bang for their buck to add that feature,
yeah,
I guess.
it's weird because it's like small populations, but they're huge. It's like,
Yeah.
why do musicians reach out to me for these controllers? There are a lot of musicians in the world. There's a lot, Roland and Yamaha and everybody else is out there making keyboards. Why aren't they doing it? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be around if they were all doing it. But no, I'm definitely going to put that specifically to audio, right? You want to have like an audio
Yeah.
solution. Yeah, it would take 3 Bluetooth radios, 1 to pair, 2 going out. I mean, you could have in theory many. You just need a radio for each. Yeah, I'll take a look.
Fantastic. I guess separately, the only update I have is actually, after this, I'll be working with an SLP down in San Antonio, on creating customized key guards. So I'm still trying to get comfortable. Still not up a chance level yet with working through key guard designer, but that's something that I'm still trying to familiarize myself with to kind of have, especially since I'm not an SLP. But
Did you see this that TechOwl put out? I don't know if they actually put it out publicly. They pretty much took Ken's instructions and put it in
Condensed it a little bit.
like what you really need. Like, no offense, Ken, but
What you
simpler
really
for
need, Ken, you're
somebody
supposed to
to,
be
like,
simplifying
novice person
things.
do.
I think Alana from Tech Owl I was a little confused because I'm not sure if it was like the OpenSCAD program still
Alana
available,
made
if not
it.
something else. But I mean, Ken's instructions are definitely very helpful. It's just like there's so much information, and there's some aspects where I'm still a little bit like hesitant, especially
Cole, let's just set up a time, and when you're working on one of these,
yes,
let's work together on it.
definitely. I mean,
There's one printing in my background if you can see it right now.
yes, it's one of those times where unfortunately, Shannon is now unable to join us. So it's like I'm comfortable with certain things. I'm like, we'll have probably need a second meeting with SLT just to get all the elements that needed, because I think I want to say it's for like the Go Talk Now app on one of the iPads, and I think there's actually I saw there's like a very very basic key guard designer for GoTalk, but it wouldn't have all the kind of the custom things that someone might need, especially with like case considerations. So I'll probably have a bit of an incomplete meeting, probably kind of come back around with her to kind of fully complete it. But yeah, it's just still kind of working through that is kind of my update, I suppose. But I mean, I'll definitely consider a meeting with you, Ken. I think I'll also just because I know that Shannon's kind of wanting to fully take over the list symbols and kind of have me take on everything else, including the key guards. So I think it's just still a little bit of a learning curve for me to kind of familiarize myself with all the things that might be needed for, custom key guard.
Ken, can you also send me your email, maybe in the chat?
Sure.
And at the
I will share my journey with making key guards. I think there's a really nice feature that Ken has built in where you can print just the first 2 layers to do a test print. And I think that really in the beginning helped me because I could test print things and make sure everything was lined up without committing to 4 or 5 hour print and then finding out it didn't fit. But I appreciate, Ken, the detail of your notes, because every time I go, I don't always make them like all that often. So sometimes I have to go back and refer to your notes. And I think every time I go back and refer to your notes, just to make sure I'm setting it up right and doing it right, I feel like I find something else. And so this week I used Inkscape to create, I had a screenshot because I was doing, pixels versus measuring with a ruler. So I was like, well, I'm going to just try this. I just happened upon it. I guess I'd skipped over that in all my past readings of it. And that was really cool. I liked having the screenshot of touch chat with word power 60 basic there, and actually I did do a test print and then I printed it and it fit phenomenal just that first time. So usually I make a tweak or 2 here or there after that test print, and having that screenshot sort of in the background really I think made a big difference in something I hadn't done. So
let me just get on a soapbox for like 2 minutes, and that is if my instructions are still readable, it's kind of miraculous. And that's because these things have grown over time. So a new feature goes in, and where do you put that in the instructions, and how do you organize this information to make it accessible so people aren't in the weeds when they don't want to be in the weeds, but they have to be in the weeds if they want that to happen. And all I can think is, boy, there are skills needed here if you really want to do a good job in creating a DIY set of devices. And one of those skills is just the ability to write well and organize information well and have the time and the inclination to go out and reorganize something because now things have changed and maybe you want to chunk it differently, the information. So my website is this kind of this thing that's grown and encrusted and all this kind of stuff over time. And I just don't have the energy or the desire because I write well enough, but I don't enjoy it. I would love to find somebody who enjoys writing to take that thing over and just
But I think what I like, Ken, about your website, and I think you're kind of playing to people who really respond well to writing, but you also have videos on there. And you have to, if we're thinking about universal design for learning and multiple means of representation, some people are visual learners and appreciate the videos that you've created on how to do stuff. Some people follow directions and, you know, like it all written down and do better with that print form of information. So everybody's a little bit different. And I do appreciate that, even though you feel like your website is a bit overwhelming, and I think it probably can be at first, but you as a maker, I think you also have to just have that mindset that you're just going to try things and it's not perfect the first time. And you know, there are different, I've found I like different attachment methods for key guards, you know, and that just comes from experience and figuring out what works for students. So a lot of it, I think, is just trial and error and having that mindset that, you know, your first key guard or your first few key guards are going to evolve and change and you're going to get better at it. So I would just persist, Cole, and yeah, you think, don't be overwhelmed, just try it, you know, just do it.
Yeah, and two things to that. One, I have garbage cans full of failed prints and test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4, test 5. Happens all the time. So that's part of the process, especially when you're prototyping. And the other thing, as if I needed more work, I do all of my work in OpenSCAD. So I'm very comfortable with using the tool. All the enclosures and everything I make are in it. I'm not a visual guy, so that's why I use it, because I like code. And I like moving things by tiny little millimeters in code.
So I would just like to say, sort of the AT DIY environment broadened to people who we often don't think of, like English majors, because it takes a lot of skills to provide a service along with your device. And part of that service is training and instruction and testing. And I'm going to give a presentation on this if Shannon actually invites me to her conference, on the fact that making is much bigger than people think it is. They think it's just this guy who rides in on a white horse and whips out all of his woodworking tools and then rides off. But that is one of the worst processes possible. So I want to see all those skills available to create something that's really customizable, personalizable, assemblable, testable, maintainable, all those things. There's a lot of skills there that aren't the engineer.
Right. I mean, customer service, support.
Somebody who can talk to another human, isn't that nice?
Right.
Not your typical engineer.
Right.
Indeed.
It's true.
And I know that we're coming up on the hour. I think it's just right about 12.